Okay, here it is. I know to adjust my microphone there. It's fine. I know what everybody's thinking. I know what everybody's been clamoring for. I've seen it all over the internet, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it tonight, is the newest potential signing by Tony Khan. We all want this to happen, so I don't know of any reason why it shouldn't. Tony Khan, it is in his best interest to sign both Bill Goldberg and Ryback. And I'll tell you why. If he signs these two superstar wrestling athletes, not only will he have two of the hottest single competitors that have ever stepped into the squared circle, but he will have the makings of one of the biggest Jewish, muscle-headed tag team killer combinations that could ever grace the face of this earth. That's right, everybody. Ryberg. Pittsburgh Piledriverpodcast. Go!
You're listening to the Pittsburgh Piledriver.
What the hell is that?
Podcast.
And hello, and once again, everybody. Thank you for indulging us on our little Easter break. We spent some time away from the podcast doing absolutely nothing that had to do with anything Easter related. It's just we didn't do a podcast, and we used Easter as an excuse. Get out of my way, stupid rock. To take a break from the podcast. So you're welcome. Pardon me, and deal with it. We're back, and we're back to talk about wrestling. We're back to talk about what matters most to us on this podcast, and that's wrestling, food, and berating each other with love. I have no idea what we're going to talk about. I'm sure the architect of the Pittsburgh Piledriver podcast, Beef the Legend, will lead us down a rabbit hole journey of wrestling conversation, because this man keeps up on the product, and I don't keep up on the weeklies because A, I don't have cable, so I can't watch the weeklies. B, I don't have cable. Well, why don't you have cable, Ransom? Well, that's none of your business, jackass. And 3, I don't know. I don't have a 3-point plan here tonight. In any case, the old imposters that graced you on the last episode are out. They're gone. We're back to the original crew. P3. Roll call. Ransom the Madman. Here. Tiger Bomb Tom.
Dead.
Damn it. Poot the Bard.
Missing.
Damn it. Beef the Legend.
Present. And
Yeah.
excluded.
No. What?
I don't know.
Okay, but listen.
Oh,
good-
too much water.
Okay, well, Beef's dead. So Tom's out. Poot's missing. Beef's dead. Welcome to the Ransom Show. This is going to be 2 shows of an hour each of Beef hacking, me hacking because I'm sick, and just my stupid diatribes. This is going to be the worst show ever. Beef,
The
because
correct-
if you weren't, it'd be horrible.
The correct response for Poot should have been eat me, and then you would have led with Busta. Whereas Busta, I was in the
Moltar,
moment and I
dead.
forgot. Zorak, eat me.
Ate me. Bust.
Where's
Tom,
Busta?
dead. Poot,
Poot,
eat me.
eat me.
Beef. Wait a minute, where's Beef?
Do 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 do. All right, so enough Space Ghost references for one show.
What kind of podcast is this?
I'm just kidding. What kind of podcast was that?
What kind of podcast
I am
was that?
without a doubt ready to be heard again. So yeah, wrestling is happening. Wrestling has
Sparkle on
happened.
my face. Excuse me.
What happened?
Nothing. It's fine.
Hey, let's talk about a real thing where Ransom needs to make a doctor's appointment. So all of you listeners out there, like send a message to Ransom the Madman. Make a doctor's appointment, you fucking mook.
Listen, I've deduced and diagnosed.
No.
I have. I've done research. It's either one of a few things. It's either long-term cooties, the allergy/cold from hell, or scurvy/black lung. Which, honestly, what do you do for any of those things? Just plenty of rum, soup, and rest. And I've been getting all those things, so I should be on the road to recovery without a need to visit a healthcare professional, right?
I mean, yes,
Is that not how that works?
But if it's a bigger deal, why not?
Well, what's it gonna be?
Well, okay, worst case scenario, you're right, and I'm sorry, listeners, indulge us. Worst case scenario, you're right, and some overpaid buffoon says, "Oh, you just got blah blah blah," and you're like, "Oh, okay, fuck, I'll just sleep in this weekend." Like, no big deal.
Yes. Ransom.
Worst case scenario is, "Hey, man, like, we gotta fix this," and you're like, "Oh, good thing I came to the doctor and didn't just WebMD it and go, you know what? I'm gonna be okay."
Look, let's face it. If it's lung cancer, I'm already done. It's over. So I'm just going to enjoy the time that I have left screaming into this stupid headset about wrestling and wrestling-related content. And, when my time comes, I'll call it a day.
Feel free to send those messages to our Facebook Messenger directly. I know he sees them. So just let him know that you want him to see the doctor.
Nobody
Anywho.
cares if I live or die. They're probably hoping that I see myself out. That way, there's less yelling and stupidity on this show, and we can get back to actual wrestling talk.
More inaccuracy in that statement than most Monday Night Raws.
Oh my gosh!
I know, right? Speaking of Monday Night Raw, guess what happened?
What's happened? No, what?
Guess what happened this week? Guess what happened?
Rhea Ripley turned heel.
Yes, that's a good thing. That is not what we're going to talk about, because that's not. Did you miss the memo? When we're talking about WWE, we talk about bad things. When we're talking about AEW, we talk about the good things. Because because we're smart marks, and that's what we do. We're sheeple, and Cornette hates us, so that's what we do.
No, I don't know why Rhea Ripley was a face ever to begin with. She
fucking exactly, man.
I don't know.
Charlotte Flair look better.
Damn it, Charlotte Flair. Did she win another title? Huh?
No, not yet. But
give it time.
Former Austin, now just Theory, won himself a shiny title and had the goofiest fucking selfie with Vince and Kennedy McMahon that I've ever seen in my life. He looked like a damn video game level 7 villain. He's not like the final villain, but like the next to last. He had this big stupid fucking grin. And with all due respect, he did look like the moment, like he was encapsulating himself in the moment. He looked like he was excited. And
who, Theory or Vince?
Yes. Well, Vince never looks excited about anything because I think those nerve endings on his face kind of stopped 20 years ago. But like I get it. Theory. I have the name of a good doctor. Theory.
Fine.
It looked like he legit was in the moment, and you know what? I may have been worked. It may have just been good acting, but he looked like he was legit in the moment. It was his first big singles title in WWE.
What was it? Intercontinental?
United States.
United States. Okay. All right.
So,
okay.
Here's my problem.
Who did he take that off of? I'm sorry.
Finn Balor.
Oh my gosh.
That's the issue. That's the issue. So let's recant the history of the United States title over the last year or so.
Yeah, lay it on me.
I don't remember who Damian Priest beat for it, but Damian Priest won it after a promising WrestleMania debut with Bad Bunny. He looked great. Bad Bunny looked great. Everyone's like, "Yeah, man, Damian Priest, great." Then they changed Damian Priest's music because Vince is too cheap to fucking pay money CFO or CFO dollar sign, whatever the fuck his name is. Like, he had a great theme, and then they fucking changed it. All right, no big deal. Has a lackluster U.S. title run, ending with Finn Balor taking the title from him 2 months before WrestleMania, a month before WrestleMania, sometime in that time frame.
Fucking birds.
They didn't do the title change at WrestleMania because, why focus on your other two titles whenever you have the two titles involved in the main event. You're going to make your main event
that
more
seems
worth,
silly.
right?
Yeah.
So basically, Balor had it for a cup of coffee and was nothing more than a transitional champion, which is the
I hate
title.
those.
Which is the title of his WWE autobiography, My Life as a Transitional Champion, the Finn Balor story. Now,
Yeah, pretty much.
that then has the internet in an uproar. What's next for Finn Balor? Or should we say Prince Devitt? Like, is his contract up? Is his contract nearing completion? Is that why he dropped the title? What's next? He posted a fairly positive, Twitter about, uh, falling down. Like, if you stay down, you're dead. If you get back up, you're growing. Whatever. I don't fucking whatever. It's fucking stupid.
Positivity.
Yeah,
That's what that is.
guess,
Bo Dallas,
but
baby.
I guess.
Finn
but,
Balor's Bo leaving.
Well, I hope he's just leaving here shortly because my God,
Let's see what you did there.
Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me he's not being misused.
No, he's been vastly misused for a very long time. Here's what I want to ask you. I think we talked about it before, or I can't remember if we talked about it before or I just saw it speculated about on the internet. But with Edge's new thing that he has going on, is it a possibility that all of this is leading to Finn Balor joining that Edge faction and pretty much saying like, well, okay, here's why I'm here. Opportunity wasted after opportunity wasted after opportunity wasted. Edge, the ultimate opportunist, I'm going to learn at the head of the master. At the feet. I'm going to learn at the foot of the master. Is that a thing? Like, is that a possibility that could happen?
I mean, I
see it as a golden road in that faction if you want to put Finn Balor in there.
I agree, but if that's the case, why have him send out a tweet like 48 hours after the fact about some positive shit? Like, why not have him
that doesn't make any sense.
Brooding and quiet and sullen, and then boom, demon form Balor. And I mean, like, we can fantasy book this Edge faction to a heart's content, but we know that Vince hates factions.
Yep.
Despite like masterminding fucking Survivor Series, which is built around fucking faction warfare, he hates him, and that's A. And B, like, I think that if this does go the faction road, if it does turn into more than just Priest and Edge, which I hope it does, it's going to be for, shall I say, younger talent. People like Rhea Ripley, who makes a lot of sense now that she's a heel. People like Tommaso Ciampa, who, while may not necessarily be younger, is a new, entry on Raw and would make a lot of sense to kind of end up there.
Yeah.
I feel like Vince McMahon tolerated Finn Balor about as much as he's going to, and I know the detractors will say, well, he was, the first Universal Champion, he was, Intercontinental Champion, he was United States Champion. They wouldn't give him all these belts if they didn't believe in him. Blah blah blah. I don't buy that.
No, I don't either, because look at what he did with those, though.
Like I'm sorry, but the whole well, they're on TV every week is not like,
that's a null argument.
Yeah, like who said that? Was it Mike Kanellis, I think? Something of that nature. Like, hey, I'm living my dream every week. Whatever. Like, I understand that perspective, but I think it's a bullshit perspective. Sticking up for the whims of a crazy old codger.
That's what you're doing. Like, you're trying to
brown nose.
Yeah. That's what he's doing. That's what something like Mike Kanellis is doing. Like, I'm on TV every week. I'm living my dream. No, really, this is your dream. Your dream was to be on TV floundering, and to not go to. It harkens back to what we touched on it before, and I'm sure many listeners have heard it. It's the Steve Austin quote. If you're not in this business to be the best and to rise to the top and to win the big belt, you're in the business for the wrong reason. Like, nobody gets into wrestling to go, oh yeah, I want to be on TV every week and, either be made a joke of or just kind of, flounder in nonsense, obscure matches that don't mean anything. No one.
Mhm.
Like, who's doing that? Who gets into wrestling to go, that's what I want to do. I want to flounder in the mid card and have match after match after match against random people for no belts, for nothing, with no storylines. That's what I want to do. I don't think so.
A belt is something that holds up your pants, sir. Let's not forget that pertinent Miz line.
I do apologize. I forgot that memo was sent out a while back, and I did make a faux pas there. That's my mistake. The birds are correcting me.
I heard it. You gotta get a pissy bitch over there.
Yeah, this fucking bird. I'm gonna shoot it. I agree with you, because if you look at the career history of Finn Balor on the main roster, yeah, he was the first ever Universal Champion. I feel like they had plans, but then he got hurt, and then I don't know if Vince got gun shy, or if Vince was kind of like, okay, this is my out. This is my opportunity to move away from him. Because I don't know how much of that was pressure from Triple H pushing Vince, saying, this is the dude, man. Like, look at all the stuff he did in NXT. This is the guy. He'll get people behind him. He's amazing. I don't know how much of that first ever Universal title win was just Vince going, all right, Paul, I'm going to try it. And then when it fails, I'm going to do face rubbing, and I'm going to rub your face in it. But I feel like Finn Balor getting hurt was Vince's opportunity to go, oh, I can wash my hands of this and move on to somebody else. Because he never regained that Universal title belt. He never got it back. I don't know if he had another Universal title shot. I can't remember.
He faced Lesnar for it at one point.
Oh, that's right. You're going to put him in a match against Lesnar.
And he had a decent drawing. Like, he had a 20-minute match or something. Like, he had one of the more memorable matches with Lesnar. But I mean, at the end of the day,
he's not going to be the guy to beat Brock.
No.
Like, he's just not. He can put on a damn good match with Brock Lesnar, absolutely, and you're right, he did. But he's not the guy that's going to beat Brock Lesnar, not for that belt. And then his Intercontinental and U.S. title reigns were really nothing to write home about. I can't even honestly remember the Intercontinental title reign. I don't remember it. I think it was a little bit more.
I think it was a little bit more notable than the U.S. title run. But yeah, I mean, either way, both were shoddy.
This is a dude that's been just thoroughly misused on the main roster, and I don't know when the last time we heard about him signing a new contract. I feel like it's been a while. I feel like we haven't talked about, like, oh, Finn Balor renewed his contract or this, that, or the other thing.
I gotta wonder how many of these NXT stalwarts kind of are waiting in the wings, saying, Vince has to die sometime. At some point, Triple H is going to take over. And
these NXT guys, they're just waiting out Vince's lifespan.
Yeah, and with Triple H's cardiac event that basically took him out of the zeitgeist, more or less. That had to be a wake up call to all of them to go, oh, maybe not. Like, maybe Vince. And I mean, at the end of the day, Vince was pushing Triple H out of the way in NXT anyway.
Yes.
So, maybe it's not so certain that Paul was going to take over. Maybe it was just that, that was the hope and the dream. And I think that we all can agree that within the last year or so, that dream has been sufficiently snuffed out and crushed.
Oh, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's happening anymore.
Nope.
Really, I believe if Vince's death doesn't come as a surprise, like, oh, he went last night, or oh, he's going tonight. Like, just if his death doesn't come out of midair, if it's one of those things where his health begins to Bird, I'm telling you, if it's one of those things where his health begins to gradually deteriorate, I bet he will sell that company before he says, okay, I'm gonna, quote unquote, retire and turn the reins over to somebody else.
Yep.
I bet he sells and just whoever buys it, you do what you want with it. It's, I don't know.
Yep. I know. I agree. And so that, I think, might be the boat that Finn Balor is in. Because, like, he went down and he had a very successful run in NXT as a champion whenever Karrion Kross got hurt. He was a godsend for them. He went down there and he looked fucking legit. It made you forget how badly his tenure on the main roster was flubbed. And then he's called back up, like, all of it's gone. The Prince, none of it. Like, he's just back to being regular old happy face, smile on his face Finn Balor. Gotta have them baby faces. Gotta have them baby faces smile, because God knows that's the key to wrestling. Baby faces gotta smile. It's working so well for Sammy Guevara.
Oh, sorry. My black lungs reared its ugly head.
A fucking doctor.
Somebody call my mama. That just goes to call a fucking doctor. How dare you presume to know what's best for me? You're not my real mom.
Could be.
That right there is proof in the pudding that it's shoddy booking. It has nothing to do with the talent and ability of Finn Balor. Because he can go to NXT and they book him in great stories against great opponents, and he's a house of fire. Like, he's a grand success. And then he goes up to the main roster and they're just like, oh, put this leather jacket on and smile, buddy. Get on out there.
And
it's just terrible booking.
And I try to see and understand things from all perspectives. I understand that we get on WWE for not pushing new talent. So now they're pushing new talent and we're mad at them. Yes, I understand that is a catch-22. I have no problem with Austin Theory having a belt. Oops, excuse me, Theory. I have no problem with Theory having a belt. And I don't even have a problem with him beating Finn Balor. I have a problem with the presentation of that title, with the usage of Finn Balor the last fucking 5 years. That's what I have a problem with. Kudos for Theory. I hope he's successful because entertaining as hell to watch. He's got a great character. He's good on the mic, and he's good in the ring.
Yep.
There's no reason he should not be a legitimate success. But, as we've seen, sometimes you need to go and, sow your wild oats and come back to be the guy. Look at Cody, Drew McIntyre. Both of those guys were deemed like the fucking future. Like, they were the guy. And then, they were made into comedy acts, both of them. They both of them went out and achieved independent success elsewhere. And now, Cody Rhodes is the big... Cody Rhodes is the franchise for Raw right now. When I forget who showed a commercial, I think it was NBC, advertising Raw and SmackDown, they had Roman Reigns for SmackDown and Cody Rhodes for Raw. Cody Rhodes, who's been there for all of 14 fucking days.
Yep.
That tells me two things. One, they are absolutely going to treat Cody like gold because they know that the eyes of the wrestling world are upon him.
This bird.
Upon them. And two, Cody 100% made the right decision. And I'll use that to segue into talking about word coming out that WWE is eyeing up FTR, who allegedly had their contracts coming up this summer for AEW. WWE wants to bring them back in the fold. I've heard that they want to give them $3 million over 3 years for their deals.
So I did say something about this in our group chat, and I posed the question, do you think if the money's right, do you think FTR will go back to WWE? And I believe your response was no way in hell, or no fucking way, or just no. You
Right
think they go
now,
back?
right now, I don't, because all they have to do is put on the infamous fucking back shaving scene. Before they left Raw, before they left WWE, that was something that happened with them and Randy Orton. Here's the kicker. Prior to that, I'm sorry, that wasn't with Randy Orton, but prior to that, they were working with Randy Orton on SmackDown, and it was dynamite. No pun intended. It was fantastic. Those three worked together very well.
Yeah.
And then they were pulled to Raw to be a comedy act. Right now, they are living their best lives. They're widely regarded as the best team in the world at this very moment, holding both the AAA tag belts and the Ring of Honor tag belts. Recently have a win over the Young Bucks, and I have a suspicion that they're probably not too far away from being the AEW tag team champions again. So, plus, AEW has the option for their contract this summer, whether or not they renew it for a year. I don't think Tony Khan's a dummy. I think he's going to 100% renew it for a year and treat them like gold the next year. And I mean, they really already have been. But I mean, I think he's going to treat them like gold so they resign with AEW. But I mean, why? I understand money. I really understand money. I get it. You got to make that paper, man. Every one of us has to make that paper. In a similar situation, I'd probably take the money. But I don't think that they're hurting for money. And
they have to be being paid well by Tony Khan. They have to be.
That's what I'm saying. And AEW allows people to go out and work indie bookings if they want. So he can go out there and they can go out there and make extra money if they want. I don't see it. They're so good right now. They're so hot. And I understand that WWE capitalized on Cody Rhodes. That they, leaned into it, and right now it's awesome. He could be the guy that beats Reigns over the summer. Who knows? That's very possible. But until I see it happen, I'm going to believe that it's going to fizzle out before it gets any bigger.
Cody, you mean?
Yes. So I think that that's going to be. But at the same time, I think that they know that all these guys, and it's not just FTR. MJF keeps making a big deal about 2024. He called it the bidding war of 2024. And I'm sure that part of it's just him being a heel and working the smart marks. But the other side of it is when 2024 comes around, that Vince is going to open up that pocketbook and say, "Hey, MJF, you want a real fucking job? You come work for me."
Yeah.
Jungle Boy, I'm sure, will be in a similar position. So, there are all kinds of eyes in AEW going, well, let's see what happens with Cody.
I think that's the crux of it. And let me just play devil's advocate there just for a second on FTR, if I could.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, their last thing in WWE was the back shaving thing.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody remembers that. Anybody that's a fan of FTR remembers that. At the same time, everybody that's a fan of Cody Rhodes remembers Stardust.
It's true.
Now, there is a big difference. If you want to really break it down, there is a big difference. The back shaving thing was just strictly haha, look at you, we're making fun of you. The Stardust thing, maybe it started out that way, but Cody took it and ran with it. He made the best of it that he could, and he made it pretty damn good. Stardust was a gimmicky character, but I was always, frankly, and maybe this is a very unpopular opinion, I was always entertained by Stardust. I thought he did very well with it. He took it and made it his own. But it was still kind of like a gimmicky thing. So he left and came back. Now they're treating him currently like gold. If they continue to do that, do you think FTR will look at it in that form and say, well, Cody left as kind of like a gimmicky ha-ha thing, went out, proved what he could do, came back. Now they're treating him like the golden boy. We left after the back shaving incident, which was, absolutely a ha-ha. We went out, became, what some argue as the best tag team that there is right now. Maybe if we come back, they'll treat us like gold.
Yeah,
Do you think it's always like? Do you think it depends on how Cody is being treated at the time when FTR's contract is up? Like if the Cody thing fizzles out and he's mid-card, whatever, not being very well utilized, not in great storylines, do you think that influences them and they go like, oh, look what happened to Cody. The honeymoon's over. We know what they're really going to do.
100%. 100%. And this is going to sound like terrible, but I don't care. I'm an advocate for the brand split. I like separate rosters. When you got a roster as big as theirs, now it's had some thinning because of their major layoffs. So I mean, they definitely need to start working with the numbers a little bit. But having two world champions on two separate shows is a smart move. The fact that they only have one world champion now is a big time problem for me. The fact that they're moving to one tag team champion.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I don't know how to feel about that one because you could argue that the amount of tag teams that are there right now aren't that great. Yes, you have some that are floundering, and yes, you have some that should absolutely be featured all the time. Street Profits, but I think they could probably get away with one tag team champions. But honestly, one heavyweight champion is a problem, especially whenever their prime directive right now is make Roman Reigns look like fucking Superman. And if it's to be believed that they want him to hold that title to next year's WrestleMania, you're going to crush your entire roster on both shows just to show off how big of a deal this guy is. And the fans are going to remember exactly why we hated Roman Reigns. Because he was being pushed despite what we wanted. Now we're all in agreement, I think, saying, hey, you know what, he's killing it, he's doing a great job. And yes, as a champion of one brand, I just if Roman Reigns goes over Cody during the summer, I think that's going to do a lot to hurt the product, do a lot to hurt his stability, do a lot to hurt Cody Rhodes. I think it's just going to be a super bummer. I'm hoping that they, smell the chicken when it's ready and they put the title on Cody. I really do. I think that would be the smartest move they could do. But if they choose to keep it on Reigns over Cody, I think that's going to be a big time problem. And then, yes, you'll see the people in AEW that are kind of waiting for things to kind of go through will go, there's Vince McMahon. That's what we've been waiting for. All the naysayers like us will go, we told you not to get too excited because we knew this was coming.
Yep.
So
I'll hearken your statement, and I'll agree with you. I think the brand split was great. When they did it, I can't remember the year off the top of my head. Whenever they did it, and they held firm with it. They had the SmackDown brand and the Raw brand. They had SmackDown pay-per-views and they had Raw pay-per-views. And only for what was it? Just the big four were they combo pay-per-views?
Yep.
That was, I think that was probably the best product that they had around that time. Because
I'd agree.
You had one show strictly revolving around one roster. You had pay-per-views strictly revolving around one roster. So, and plus it had that kind of like internal competition, whether it was, a real competition or just, like kayfabe staged competition. Either way, I didn't care. I thought it was compelling, especially on those pay-per-views where you had the combination, the Survivor Series pay-per-views, when you would have SmackDown versus Raw, brand supremacy, things like that. The Royal Rumble, whenever you would have, the Royal Rumble come to a screeching halt, the Raw guys on one side, the SmackDown guys on the other side, there's a clash between the two brands. I always thought that was compelling storytelling. And whenever they had the brand split, but things got muddied, where champions could go wrestle in other shows, and they had the wild cards that could show up on whatever shows, like that, it went down the toilet at that point. I think the brand split is a very good idea, and I think holding firm like they used to with a brand split is a good idea, because I think it also helps for people to not get tired of seeing somebody like, oh, we know we're going to see this guy on Raw. We're going to see the same guy on SmackDown. It's going to be the same thing in the ring, squash over. It gets boring. With a brand split, I think it keeps things a little bit more fresh. It keeps the wrestlers a little bit more fresh. It keeps people invested a little bit more in individual storylines.
Yep.
I think they need to. And I think you're right. Having one champion now is a problem, especially and again, just like you said, if their plan is to keep both belts or whatever unified title they wind up having on Roman Reigns throughout this entire year until we get to next year's WrestleMania for the payoff of him versus The Rock, if that's the plan and if it happens, you're right. He's going to run through so many different superstars. I hate that word. He's going to run through so many different wrestlers on both brands that you almost delegitimize them as legitimate contenders for Roman Reigns. Because if we get to summer or early fall and he has run through everyone that he has come across, people are going to expect him to win. People are going to go, oh, it's going to be Roman Reigns against this guy. Roman Reigns is going to win, guaranteed, because he's not going to lose the belt till Mania. And I think it takes away people's vested interest in being involved in the Roman Reigns matches because they know what's going to happen.
Yep. And I'll say one thing. I think the brand split, yes, back in the day was amazing because it's well known that I think that the Ruthless Aggression era was some of the best stuff on TV that WWE has done, and that was kind of the cause of that. I wasn't as big a fan of the single branded pay-per-views because once you started getting down the match card, it got real thin. And I think that they would run into the same situation now because they've worked themselves in the corner chasing away a bunch of talent. Where if they chose to do single branded pay-per-views, they would be very, very they would have rough patches. But I still think that the brand should be solid. Have a yearly draft where you send not everybody. You don't need to redraft the entire roster, but you can have 10 picks on Raw, 10 picks on SmackDown that change that way you get different matchups every year. And like that, then when you see Brock Lesnar on Raw and SmackDown, you know it's a big deal because he's a Raw guy, he's not supposed to be here. Or you see Roman Reigns on Raw, you're like, oh fuck, it's Reigns SmackDown guys on Raw. This is going to be a big deal. It makes it feel more important. And the guys in the back absolutely made it a contest. They had the work storylines on TV about brand supremacy and all that, but the Raw guys were like, hey, let's not go out and be embarrassed by SmackDown. Let's put on a great show, and vice versa. So it creates competition in its own brand. So yeah, man, the fact, and I don't think they're gonna do away with that totally, but I feel like they're definitely writing themselves into a corner with Reigns and potentially the Usos, the tag team champions, the world heavyweight champion, all of that being under one umbrella is kind of a problem. And the fact that it's all going to be part of the Samoan dynasty, likely, is an even bigger problem. Where basically you're putting all of your eggs in the Roman Reigns basket.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's a problem, and we're way off like where we started. But yeah, so that I think is going to determine what happens with Cody, and what they do in the summer. I think reverberates and will send some shockwaves down through the AEW ranks to see who does what. We've already seen some AEW layoffs. I think Joey Janela said his agreement's not being renewed. Angelico or Jack Evans is not being renewed. Marco Stunt's not being renewed. Basically, the guys that I don't want to say the lower level guys because that's not fair to them, but like the guys that were there to kind of start to fill out the card while AEW found itself, are kind of being let go, and that's fine. It's not like Tony Khan is firing them. He's honoring their contract until the end of April or May or whenever they're up, and then saying, hey, good luck. So it's not like he's pulling a Vince and saying, okay, you know what, I know that we have an agreement till June, but you're gone in December. He ain't like that.
They're not releasing people.
So I mean, and there could come a time where we see something like that, depending on how AEW succeeds. And for all the naysayers, I saw some charts out there today. They have had growth. Definitively, they've had year after year growth. Is it growing exponentially? Not necessarily, but that's not the real world,
No, growth is growth.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing's going to succeed 150% one year to the next. Unless you're fucking Apple or the next big whatchamajigget,
Yep.
that's you're not going to get 150% growth every year. But as long as you are growing, you're not plateauing or falling. As long as you're growing, that's a good thing. And year by year, their ratings are going up. Their buy rates are going up. So yeah, AEW is certainly on the grow, but with that growth comes much responsibility. They're going to have to learn how to juggle their roster a little bit because it's very clear that some people aren't being used, or some people are being on Rampage only, which is great, except for I think half of the fan base watches Rampage. So they're gonna have to be cognizant of that. And I think that some of the AEW frustration will stem from that. Hey, like Brian Cage, for example. They brought me in, they pushed me to the top real quick, and then they just let me fester for fucking 6 months. Now that he's headed apparently to Ring of Honor, I think that's why the Tony Khan Ring of Honor thing is an amazing thing too, because it gives them another brand to work with. So hopefully we'll see some more fleshing out of that, coming in the near future. But yeah, right now, I'm excited because for the first time in 20 years, you have people that may show up on Raw the next week after they were on Dynamite or vice versa, that's exciting to have again,
Oh, for sure. And I think the Ring of Honor thing is a very good thing because it gives more roster availability. If there are people that aren't being very well featured or utilized in AEW, there could be very good spots for them in Ring of Honor. And it could just be it just could be another doorway for opportunity for people.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, the Ring of Honor acquisition is a very good thing for AEW and for all the wrestlers that work there. It's just more opportunity.
Just wrestling fans in general, man. I think that everybody wins here.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So there was a Triple H shoot interview this week. Did you hear about that? About him talking about NXT and that?
No, I didn't. Where did he
Yeah.
who interviewed him?
What was it? He was on of course not. The Athletic, which is a fairly reputable sports reporter.
Okay.
He basically talked about how the plan always was to be like to go back to this, to shift back into a developmental program. I don't buy it. Like he can say that he can say that all he wants, but Triple H was not building a developmental program. Triple H was building a third brand successfully. And
yeah, I that was going to be my question for you is do you believe that everything Triple H said in that interview was the God's honest truth, or do you believe that he gave some company toad lines there? Because like you said, when NXT took off and became a legit third brand and people were really invested and really watching, was that really the plan all along, to have it get that big and that popular just to go, we're going to make it developmental again, don't worry about it, it's fine?
So there are like a couple key flashpoints that I think really happened with NXT. The first was the first NXT takeover, where they're like, "Hey, we're not just Florida. What was it?
FTW.
Yes.
FCW. Sorry, FCW.
Where we're not just like a cornet program. We're not Deep South. Like we're not just we're building something here with young people, and it got people excited to watch the product, and that's when it started to take off. Then came like the time of like your Drew McIntyres and your Samoa Joes and your Adam Coles and your Shinsuke Nakamura's, like the people that absolutely were in existence in the Indies. And Triple H said, you know what, we can do this. We can put together a developmental style program, still bringing along the young people. I feel like such an old person saying that. Still bringing on the young talent, but also putting on amazing wrestling. And that worked. That absolutely worked. Despite how the main roster treated those people, spoiler alert, badly.
Not well.
It absolutely worked for NXT. And then I think they're pushed into a brand war that they had no business being in, only because of the wrestling fans. The wrestling fans are like, well, AEW next year, basically the same thing, just under two different headings with different wrestlers. So let's see which one's the best. Like I appreciate competition, but I harken back to whenever Impact brought in Hulk Hogan, and they made a push for Monday nights, and they just got flattened for like a month, and they're like, "Welp," and then they all kind of tucked their tails between their legs, and
that didn't work.
No, not at all. So, like, if you're not ready for that level of competition,
don't do it. Good Lord, don't do it.
Exactly. And I don't think that Vince and the WWE set NXT and Triple H up with that kind of, excitement. I mean, AEW had Kenny Omega, sure, the best wrestler in the world, but they also had Jon Moxley, a huge name defecting from WWE. Like that was, tantamount to fucking Paul and Nash defecting from WWF to WCW. Like that was him. So like, and NXT had nothing, and not nothing. I mean, we appreciate it for what it was, but they didn't have like the indentured stars. It wasn't until fucking the rebranding that they brought down like AJ Styles and The Miz and fucking Natalia and like people dipping their feet down in NXT now. Like if they would have had a pinch of that during the brand wars during the Wednesday night wars with AEW, who knows where it could have gone. But the bottom line is Vince didn't want to concede because Vince wanted NXT to be a feeder system. He wanted it to be developmental. So developmental it was. And here we are again in a circular cyclical cycle. Here we are, it's developmental again. Like Triple H had some soft words about how that was their vision from the beginning, and then they hit some hard times with the pandemic, and they kind of shifted. And no, you know what? That's bullshit. Triple H was never building a developmental brand. He was building a brand that had young, hungry talent mixed with talent who were hungry to be seen.
Okay, so I guess my big question is, why could NXT... why could it not have been both what it was and also a developmental at the same time?
It was.
Like it right. Like, why does it have to be one or the other? I felt like it was succeeding being both, because you had NXT call-ups. Like, and that's what people talked about. That's what, regardless of what WWE said, that's kind of like what the fans dubbed it, was they're getting called up to the main roster. They're getting called up from NXT. They're getting called up from developmental. It was successful as its own brand and a developmental brand at the same time. I don't see why it had to be one or the other. Like you said, now they have completely redone it and made it a developmental brand, a developmental system. But what was so broken about it before? What was so broken about it where it was both?
Oh my God!
Like
what happened? What happened? Somebody mentioned Ryberg, and I fucking had an aneurysm and a heart attack, and I blacked out, and I think I might have pooped myself a little bit for a while. What happened?
Were you listening to the dude's story, Donnie? Like I don't get it. Welcome, Tiger Bomb Tom, as well.
God,
I'm sorry. We should probably redo the roll call again since we have a new participant. Let's hold on. I gotta get back into my my intro announcer mode here.
Oh, please.
P3 podcast. Shut up. Pittsburgh Piledriver Podcast. Roll call. Ransom the Madman here. Beef the Legend.
Present, but excluded.
Tiger Bomb Tom.
I'm back from the dead.
Poot the Bard.
Eat me.
Damn it, he's still dead. But yeah, like my frustration with all of this is WWE or Vince McMahon, whoever, their insistence on saying NXT needs to be a developmental brand, not a legitimate competing brand that people like to watch. Why, though? The black and gold NXT was great as a developmental system to get people trained up to how WWE works, whether you're coming from a different promotion or whether you're coming from the independent scene. Learn the WWE system. That's what they did at NXT. And they did it well. They did it successfully. People have successfully transitioned despite how much shit we constantly throw. People have successfully transitioned from NXT to the main roster. All three members of the Shield did it. Look at Roman Reigns now. Look at Seth Rollins now. Kevin Owens, yeah, he's had some bumps in the road, but this dude had a main event match at WrestleMania against Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's a big fucking deal. So there have been people that have trained in NXT, learned the WWE way, and gone to the main roster to be big successes.
The main roster wouldn't have a women's division if it weren't for NXT.
No!
And
Good
like
Lord, they still have the
NXT
freaking Divas division.
Yep. NXT 100% brought about the change in the women's division because people watched
Yes.
NXT and they were like, "Oh my God, Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch can wrestle." Hashtag give divas a chance, and
Yep.
that's where that all came from, man.
Yep, the WWE women's roster is widely successful now. I truly believe because of NXT and because of the NXT women's division. Not that there weren't some good legitimate wrestlers on the main roster beforehand. Trish Stratus, Mickey James, as much as you want to give her crap, Natalya,
Lita,
yes, Lita, Beth Phoenix.
Beth,
Yes, there were. But I feel like the women who came from NXT to the main roster in the women's division, in the women's revolution, this might be a shitty thing to say, but I'm going to say it. I feel like they were next tier, next level women's division. And again, to take nothing away from the actual women's wrestlers who competed in the stupid divas division, there were good ones. But the NXT women's revolution that came to the main roster was revolutionary and were a tier above.
Yep.
So NXT did they were doing it right as far as creating developmental talent, getting them ready, and bringing them up. So I don't understand the need to strictly say we are a developmental in NXT. That's what it is. Strictly developmental. Let's slap some tie-dye on this bitch. Let's get rid of all of the great things that we did before and do strictly developmental. I don't get it.
It's hilarious to hear Triple H like glad handing it, like he absolutely gave the company answer, and it's just got to be disappointing to him,
It has to be heartbreaking because you could see the amount of effort and thought and care that Triple H put into those. When he would come out and announce NXT takeovers, when he would stand in that ring, and again, like Triple H is a promo professor. This dude is an expert at giving promos. But I felt the passion and the pride when he would come out and stand in that ring and open up NXT takeovers by saying, "We are NXT." Like I felt the pride that he was emanating for what these young talents are doing, and for what he was able to do by taking over what was essentially a wrestling game show and turning it into something that fans tuned in for week after week after week religiously and watched and were very vocal in the arena about the product. For him to have to sit there and pretty much regurgitate WWE corporate bullshit, I can only imagine how much that turned his stomach, because he doesn't believe that. He doesn't believe in his heart that this was always meant to be developmental, and it's what it's supposed to be. This is supposed to be developmental. Like, no. He poured his soul and all of his effort and all of his wrestling knowledge into making NXT what it was, and it was fucking fantastic. And now it's just heartbreaking to look at.
I think Triple H is the Padme of the WWE. People will say, well, why did Triple H have a heart attack? Was it all the steroids? No, his heart broke because of what was happening with NXT.
I would not rule that out as a contributing factor. I really wouldn't.
Likely. And in all seriousness, there's probably a lot of fucking stress, so it would not surprise me in the
to look back on it now too, to see all the talent that's now gone.
Yep.
To see all the people that he worked side by side with.
Mm-hmm.
Road Dogg, William Regal, all these guys that helped train this new generation of wrestler and make NXT amazingly successful. Like after he had that heart incident and he was out and Vince and Bruce Pritchard swept in and just Regal, bye. Road Dogg, bye. All the talent, bye. Oh, my Lord. To sit back and just have to watch what you created be picked apart by vultures tearing apart a carcass.
Yep.
Has got to be just gut-wrenchingly heartbreaking. Oh.
And with that note of positivity, we should probably wrap up. We do want to thank our wonderful sponsors. You know who they are. We don't have to list them every single episode. You know who our sponsors are. Give them some love, especially our boy here, Casual Gaming Dad. Go like him on Facebook, share out his shit, comment, go on Twitch, subscribe, give him a follow. Do the thing, because you know when you're watching CGD, you are getting quality fucking content. Also, I will say this. We are still, I think, being backed by IWC, Clearfield, that movement, and Sean Tischler up there, in which there is news. There is IWC coming back to the Clearfield area in September. I think it's like September the 10th. But yeah, IWC is coming back to Clearfield, September the 10th, 2022. Talk to Sean to get tickets. I don't know if they're on sale yet. I don't have any details. But it's back, baby. Yeah. Thanks for listening. And I know this is Poot Spiel, so I'm not the best at the outros. But I'll just wish you a humble good evening or day or night or whenever you're listening to this on whatever service you are. Goodbye.
Okay, bye.